The monarchy provides, with the Constitution, a degree of long-term stability that is actually quite hard to come by any other way.
The moment a queen is told you cannot enter that door, the quiet world of royal tradition stops being polite and starts becoming war. Because behind the manicured hedges of Sandringham, one of the British monarchy's most sacred estates, a confrontation is reportedly unfolding that insiders describe not as a disagreement, but as a calculated territorial strike. And at the center of it all stands one of the most formidable figures in the royal family, Princess Anne, a woman who has allegedly drawn a legal boundary so sharp that even Queen Camilla is said to have been forced to step back from a private summer plan she believed was already within reach. The whispers started quietly, palace aides lowering their voices, legal paperwork moving through private channels, advisors asking careful questions about property rights that had never needed to be written down before. For generations, the royal family handled Sandringham through trust, through unspoken agreements, through the sort of aristocratic understanding that assumed everyone knew their place. But suddenly, those quiet understandings were no longer enough. Lawyers appeared, documents were drafted, lines were drawn, and when lawyers enter royal family matters, it usually means something much deeper has broken. Because Sandringham is not just another royal residence, it is something far more personal, far more symbolic. Spread across nearly 20,000 acres of Norfolk countryside, it represents a private heart of the monarchy that exists outside the public machinery of the crown estate. This land does not belong to the nation. It belongs to the monarch personally. It passes directly from sovereign to sovereign like a family heirloom, untouched by government oversight. When Queen Elizabeth II died in 2022, Sandringham passed directly into the hands of King Charles, and with that transfer came not just land, but an entire web of family traditions, private arrangements, and living spaces that members of the royal household have quietly occupied for decades. Hidden within the estate are a patchwork of historic residences: Wood Farm, Anmer Hall, Park House, scattered cottages, and working farms, each carrying its own story, its own quiet claims, its own history of who stays where and when. For years, those arrangements were handled informally. A nod here, a conversation there, a gentleman's agreement among people raised to believe tradition mattered more than paperwork. But 2026 has not been kind to royal traditions. Because behind the calm exterior of palace life, tensions that have simmered for decades have reportedly begun boiling over, and one of the deepest fault lines runs straight between Princess Anne and Queen Camilla. This is not a rivalry that appeared overnight. Those who have followed royal history closely know its roots stretch back nearly half a century. Long before Camilla ever wore a crown, before the wedding in 2005 that formally brought her into the royal family, before public opinion slowly softened toward her presence beside Charles, there were already quiet tensions inside palace walls. Princess Anne built her reputation on duty, discipline, loyalty to the institution above everything else. She is widely considered the hardest-working royal, attending more engagements than nearly anyone in the family year after year. She rarely seeks publicity, she avoids spectacle, and she has always carried herself with a certain unshakable seriousness about what monarchy means. Camilla's path into the royal family was very different. Her relationship with Charles began during one of the most turbulent chapters in royal history, the collapse of his marriage to Princess Diana. For years, public hostility toward Camilla was fierce, and although her image has dramatically improved over time, insiders say the scars from that era never completely disappeared within the family itself. According to several palace observers, Anne and Camilla have long maintained what one source described as a carefully managed Cold War, polite in public, civil at official events. But beneath the surface, distrust. Anne reportedly believes Camilla sometimes pushes the boundaries of influence within the monarchy. Camilla, in turn, allegedly views Anne as stubbornly protective of family loyalties that complicate the institution's public image. And that tension has now collided with another explosive figure in the royal orbit, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Andrew's fall from grace has been one of the most damaging scandals the monarchy has faced in decades. Once the Duke of York, once a central figure within royal life, he became a global controversy after his disastrous television interview regarding his relationship with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The damage was immediate and lasting. By October 2025, King Charles had stripped Andrew of the last remaining titles and privileges connected to his royal role. The message from the palace was unmistakable. The monarchy was distancing itself. Andrew was removed from Royal Lodge and relocated to Wood Farm on the Sandringham estate, a much quieter, more modest residence. But the situation escalated dramatically in February 2026 when police vehicles reportedly arrived at Sandringham on Andrew's 60th 66th birthday. Officers conducted searches both there and at his former Windsor residence. Andrew was detained for questioning and held for approximately 11 hours before being released under investigation. The event stunned royal watchers. It marked the first time in centuries that a sibling of a reigning monarch had faced such a public legal confrontation. And suddenly the already fragile balance inside the royal family shifted again. Because while many within the monarchy wanted to distance themselves from Andrew entirely, Princess Anne reportedly did not agree with that approach. According to insiders, Anne has quietly advocated for her brother's basic dignity despite the scandal surrounding him. She has allegedly raised concerns about his mental health and argued that the family should not abandon him completely while legal investigations continue. Queen Camilla, on the other hand, is said to hold a far harder line. Sources claim she believes any visible support for Andrew risks further damaging the monarchy's reputation. And that disagreement about loyalty, about reputation, about how the institution protects itself has reportedly spilled over into something much more concrete: space, access, control over Sandringham itself. Because according to sources familiar with the situation, Princess Anne's legal team recently moved to formalize her household's long-standing private use rights to a specific wing of the Sandringham estate, not ownership. The property still belongs to the king, but a legally documented right to occupy and use particular spaces historically associated with Anne's family arrangements. In large hereditary estates across Britain, such arrangements are common. Families often establish legal licenses to occupy certain buildings or sections of land once informal agreements begin to deteriorate. And that appears to be exactly what has happened here. By involving lawyers and documenting these rights formally, Anne has reportedly accomplished two powerful things at once. First, she created a legal paper trail that cannot easily be overridden by internal palace decisions. Second, she sent a message, quiet but unmistakable, that certain parts of Sandringham are not open for negotiation. The timing of the move is what truly raised eyebrows inside royal circles. Every summer, Sandringham closes to the public for several weeks, allowing the royal family to use the estate privately. During that time, there had reportedly been discussions about Queen Camilla spending an extended period there, possibly using a secluded wing as a personal retreat away from London's relentless public schedule. But the wing Camilla was rumored to be considering may now fall within the area Anne's lawyers have secured, which means that door, quite literally, may now be closed. And insiders say Camilla is furious. For a woman who has spent decades fighting for acceptance within the royal institution, the idea of being blocked from space inside one of its most historic estates is said to feel less like a scheduling issue and more like a territorial challenge. Meanwhile, King Charles stands directly in the middle of the storm. His health struggles continue to cast uncertainty over the monarchy's future. His younger brother's legal troubles refuse to disappear. His relationship with Prince Harry remains strained and complicated. And now two of the most powerful women in his life, his sister and his wife, are reportedly locked in a legal and personal standoff over one of the royal family's most symbolic homes. Those close to the palace say Charles has so far chosen silence. But in royal politics, silence rarely ends conflict. More often, it lets it grow. Because Sandringham has always been more than a residence. It has been a refuge where the Windsors retreat from the world, where Christmas gatherings unfold away from cameras, where Queen Elizabeth spent her final days, and where Prince Philip chose a quiet retirement. And now, in the middle of 2026, that sanctuary may be turning into something far less peaceful. A legal battleground, a place where loyalty, reputation, family bonds, and power are colliding behind closed doors. And the question now hanging over Sandringham is simple, yet explosive. Princess Anne has drawn a line. But what happens if Queen Camilla decides not to step back from it? What makes this entire situation even more volatile is that the battle unfolding at Sandringham is no longer just about a summer retreat or a question of who occupies which room. It is quietly transforming into a deeper power struggle over influence inside the House of Windsor at a time when the monarchy itself is navigating one of the most uncertain periods in decades. Because when Princess Anne's legal move surfaced behind palace walls, it did not simply close a door to a particular wing of the estate. It forced everyone inside the royal orbit to confront a reality they had long tried to avoid, that the old system of family diplomacy, those carefully balanced understandings that once held the Windsors together, may no longer be functioning at all. For generations, the royal family relied on hierarchy and tradition to settle disputes. The monarch made the final decision, and everyone else adapted. But this situation is different. King Charles, by nearly all accounts, is not stepping in decisively, and that hesitation has created a vacuum where two very strong personalities now appear to be testing their influence against each other. On one side stands Princess Anne, disciplined, loyal to the institution above personal image, and fiercely protective of what she believes is the monarchy's internal integrity. On the other side stands Queen Camilla, a woman who fought for decades to secure her place beside Charles and who has emerged stronger and more confident than many critics ever expected. Neither woman has built a reputation for backing down, and that is why insiders believe the legal maneuver at Sandringham may have been less about property and more about positioning. Because if the reports are accurate, Anne's legal documentation does not just secure temporary use of space, it establishes precedent. It signals that certain family arrangements will now be protected through law rather than tradition. That shift changes the internal dynamics of the royal household in ways that could echo far beyond one Norfolk estate. Sources say Camilla did not anticipate this development. The idea of spending quiet summer weeks at Sandringham had reportedly seemed natural given the changes in her personal living arrangements earlier in the year. For decades, Raymill House in Wiltshire had served as her sanctuary, a private retreat she maintained even after marrying Charles. It was a place where she could step away from royal protocol and simply exist outside the intense scrutiny that follows every member of the monarchy. But in early 2026, reports surfaced that Camilla had transferred ownership of Raymill House, effectively loosening her connection to the one residence that had always been fully hers. Around the same time, Charles purchased a neighboring property nearby, further weaving their private lives together within the royal estate network. With Balmoral traditionally serving as Charles's preferred summer residence in Scotland, Sandringham increasingly looked like the ideal location for Camilla to carve out a quieter seasonal base, somewhere she could remain within the royal system while still enjoying a measure of independence. And that is precisely where Anne's legal move appears to have disrupted the plan, because the wing now being protected by Anne's legal team reportedly overlaps with the very section of the estate Camilla had quietly been considering for extended summer use. Whether Camilla had formally requested the space or whether Anne acted preemptively remains unclear, but the practical result is the same. The space is now legally associated with Anne's household, and suddenly the Queen finds herself navigating a situation that carries uncomfortable symbolism: a locked door, a boundary drawn. Camilla, meanwhile, has become the emotional center of Charles's private life. After decades of controversy, she has proven remarkably resilient, gradually transforming public hostility into cautious acceptance. Those close to the king say she is one of the few people capable of calming him during moments of intense pressure. So if Charles were to intervene decisively in favor of either woman, the consequences could ripple far beyond Sandringham. For now, he appears to be doing something very royal, waiting. Will this legal boundary remain a quiet family arrangement, or will it become the opening move in a much larger struggle for influence inside the House of Windsor? Because in royal history, the most consequential battles rarely begin with public arguments.